In the vast majority of instances, I have to say that I have a profound disinterest in drama, and more specifically e-drama. So me talking about Dr. Disrespect in this video has relatively little to do with the events of his recent downfall. But I need to go over the basics for the sake of explanation in case people are not aware of who Dr. Disrespect is and what has happened. Dr. Disrespect is a super famous streamer. He was on Twitch for the majority of his career. But in 2020, there was a mysterious banning from Twitch that we didn't know anything about. It was handled confidentially by his legal team, and that was it. And he moved on to YouTube, and that was that. But recently, it turned out, due to a series of comments that he made, that his banning was due to misconduct on his part, namely the texting with a minor. The age of the minor has not been disclosed. This has caused an internet-wide backlash. All the drama channels are talking about it and covering it, and YouTube indeed has removed his membership status and has demonetized his entire channel. He's effectively dead in the water. He could still recover, maybe if he went to a platform like Kick or something like that, but ultimately it doesn't matter, and I'm not terribly interested in the drama per se. I'm much more interested in the profile and the archetype, so to speak, the phenotype, as it were, of Dr. Disrespect. Now, if you look at him without his weird wig and his shades, he's a pretty good-looking guy. I'd give him at least a 7 on the facial scale, pretty good facial structure, pretty good build overall. Of course, his most imposing feature is the fact that he's 6'5", and the vast majority of men on planet Earth are not 6'5", and therefore he stands out. And on top of all that, he is very skilled at doing the gaming, streaming thing. He's funny, he's entertaining, etc., etc. And this has, of course, led to him becoming famous and therefore becoming rich in the process of his streaming. So Dr. Disrespect has, in fact, a suite of traits, qualities, that are very positive, that have redounded to his benefit over the years. The combination of the extreme height, the pretty good looks, as well as the personality that was very suitable to streaming and entertaining people, probably young people, if I had to guess. It all just came together for him. On top of that, he happens to have a wife and, I believe, 2 children. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe he got together with his wife before the streaming fame, although I might be mistaken about that. So by most metrics, a lot of people would say Dr. Disrespect is the total package. Not perfect, he's not a Brad Pitt in terms of his looks, but he's good-looking, very tall, money status, kind of the works. Many men would like to be in Dr. Disrespect's position. But you can see that despite having a lot of qualities, personality conducive to streaming, height, looks, money, status, he nonetheless has some serious psychological flaws. And one flaw in particular is his lack of impulse control with respect to his carnal urges. Now, impulse control is usually something that is generalized. I think it's very specific because you can see people who are fabulously wealthy but very overweight, so they quote-unquote lack impulse control when it comes to eating and their appetite. You see people that are jacked and ripped, but they don't have a lot of money because they're constantly spending it or overspending it. And you see every iteration in between. So this particular flaw of his is the thing that got him into trouble because he already has been on record for having cheated on his wife. Now, that's not highly unusual, but if you have the type of personality that's inclined towards cheating, and there's a genetic component here, probably a very strong one, and on top of that, you're tall, good-looking, rich, and you are streaming all the time, it stands to reason that you're going to come into contact with a lot of temptation. It's only normal. But if you contrast that with somebody like Ninja, and Ninja doesn't look nearly as good as Dr. Disrespect, nor does he have his charisma or anything like that, and maybe it's part of that. Maybe it's part of his phenotype, ultimately, being a tall, attractive guy. Ninja has this policy of not streaming or working with females on Twitch because he doesn't want to suffer accusations. Now, Ninja is still famous and wealthy. I'm sure he probably could pull something if he really wanted to. But for whatever reason, he has a different personality, and the temptation isn't worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze for him. Whereas with Dr. Disrespect, he clearly has the inclination to cheat. It's been demonstrated. And again, that's part of his personality, at least in part. It's partly a genetic thing. And that one flaw he had, despite all of his positive traits, I mean, like I said, many men would be all too happy to be in his position, that one flaw led to his downfall, and he probably will struggle to recover from this. On top of all of that, I'm pretty sure he married his wife before he became famous, or however you want to term it. And in a sense, he kind of outgrew his wife. You always hear these stories, which are true by the way, of couples that get together when they're essentially the same weight and more or less the same appearance. Well, one of them loses a ton of weight and the other doesn't. And all of a sudden, the weight loss shunts them into a higher looks category. And in many such cases, the relationship doesn't work out too well. Now, this is not perfectly analogous, but imagine your wife is basically a nobody, and you become a rich, famous streamer with tons of temptation. Now, again, I'll emphasize that famous or not, I think people with the inclination to cheat will do so. There's no doubt about that. But the temptation to cheat, because of the possibilities and opportunities being offered to you, is that much greater. And I can't really comment on the inner life of Dr. Disrespect and his wife. I have no idea. But if I had to guess, she's probably less than satisfied just because he probably has cheated more than once, although only one time is documented. But she puts up with it, A, because of his status and money, and B, because he's a tall and good-looking guy. And I'm not saying it's good or bad here, I'm being neutral. But when you marry somebody who either in that moment or later becomes rich and famous, and they're tall and good-looking, they are going to be beset by temptation. And I imagine in her place, she just has to come to terms with something like that. The reverse can be true too, albeit for other reasons. If a average-looking guy marries or gets together with a significantly more attractive woman, she's going to have so many options. He will probably not be able to retain her, which is why the principle of assortative mating usually levels all this stuff out over time, whether it comes to looks, whether it comes to status, whether it comes to education, etc., etc. So initially, I think Dr. Disrespect was in a higher SMV category than his wife. But then once he became famous and wealthy, that catapulted him into an even higher SMV category compared to his wife. And now they're basically not matched. She's not quite as good looking as he is, I have to say. And on top of that, she's a nobody. Now, I don't know anything about his wife. Maybe she's an amazing mother and a great wife to him. Who knows? I'm not going to claim one way or another. But you can clearly see, again, a looks mismatch as well as a status mismatch. And so the assortative mating principle has been violated in the marriage of Dr. Disrespect to his wife, which indeed helped to open the floodgates of Dr. Disrespect's cheating and other misdemeanors, which he probably would have done anyway. Like I said, cheating has a significant genetic component. But there are a couple of takeaways from this ultimately. One, the wife, I believe, has 2 children with him. I might be wrong about that. But in any event, she got the good genes. She got the good genes, and her offspring are very likely to reproduce, especially if they're females, but even if they're males, because his sons are likely to be very tall. So in a sense, it's a trade-off. She got the better-looking, higher status guy, but she had to pay a price for that in terms of his behavior. And therefore, her offspring have been seeded with the good genes from Dr. Disrespect. And by good, I mean likely to reproduce, likely to carry on the DNA legacy. And so that's a big win for her. Maybe on a personal or interpersonal level, she's not happy or miserable. I don't think most wives would be happy if their husbands are cheating. But nonetheless, genetically, she definitely won the lottery, and her children will probably benefit from that. Never mind all the money and status that Dr. Disrespect has accrued over the years. And the final observation to be made here is that you can't have it all. Very, very few people have perfect personalities, perfect looks, perfect height, perfect everything. Inevitably, you're going to be missing out on something. In the worst case scenario, you're missing out on most things. But in the case of Dr. Disrespect, he had a fatal flaw in his personality. Low carnal impulse control, and on top of that, low impulse control in general. Because it should be pointed out that if he just kept quiet, shut his mouth, or simply said, "This has been covered by my lawyers, the case is closed," none of this would have happened. But again, low impulse control, this all led to this particular outcome. Anyway, I thought this case was interesting to observe from a mating psychological perspective. Yes, the drama is interesting to some people. I don't particularly care about that. But in any event, thank you for tuning in, as always. Many special thanks to my patrons. You guys are the best. You are the lifeblood of the channel. Without you, the channel could not exist. And thank you very much indeed to my donors on PayPal as well. As for everybody else, if you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. I heard it helps. It doesn't seem to, but I heard it helps. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out then. Until the next time, may the gods watch over you. Bye-bye for now. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.